Thank you for attending today's RDA webinar on getting active in RDA. I am Riina Salmivalli from the RDA Europe Training Program team. Today, we are happy to hear presentations from two very long-time RDA influencers, Peter Wittenburg and Leif Laaksonen. They both have been involved in RDA from the very start and are definitely the right persons to enlighten why RDA is of such a great importance and how you can get involved easily. So let's start, please, Leif.
Thank you, Riina, and I'm happy to see a few people, at least. Perhaps there will be more people joining in. And as Riina said, this is a bit of the old horses run. So I'm happy that there are so many of you betting on the old horses after all. But as Riina welcomed you, I'm happy to, I can't say I see you, but I know your existence in the background. I will first take you for a ride, I was saying, but for a short introduction into how RDA came through, what we did in the beginning, and a bit of sort of a history and how you can get active in RDA. And Peter will take you for a more detailed exercise in what you actually can do as a scientist in RDA. Okay, so I'll start here and go to the first. I thought it would be nice. It's not very many occasions I can tell the audience a bit about my background. So I thought I would. I have not always been an old horse, so I have a bit of a background in being a scientist as well. And I'm a trained computational chemist, mostly in relativistic and non-relativistic or quantum mechanics, which we did in the 80s, most likely on computers, which were not any more powerful than your mobile phone today, which shows you in a way, I think, how rapidly this world is changing. At least you have a lot more memory in your mobile phone than we had in the computers back in the 80s. I was mostly doing programming. I was sort of a programming engineer, but we created a lot of data. And at the time, we were extremely proud of the big amounts of data we created, mostly, in my case, from the numerical simulations, the wave functions, and of course, molecular coordinates, which were not size-wise very big. Later in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, I got more involved in the developing bioinformatics and the very, very exciting molecular mechanics, which I thought was extremely interesting, because going from small molecules with only a few atoms to biomolecules with hundreds or even thousands of atoms at the time created a lot of data. And to be honest, I think even that could fit into a mobile phone, perhaps on the top range mobile phone today. So doing a molecular simulation of the type we did in the 80s could as well be done on the mobile phone. But I think the amount of data which we started to create and where we are today, that wouldn't fit into any mobile phone today. Perhaps in 20 or 30 years' time, but that's in the future. Later in the 2000, I got more involved in policy matters of research data and research infrastructures and research e-infrastructures in particular. So that's a bit background of how I came into this. A bit of history, because I think it's very, very important to understand that RDA was in the beginning and I would still judge today, is very much an activity which we call bottom up. It's the value of the work of RDA is really what the individuals do in RDA. The RDA as an organization perhaps is only providing, not only, but it's providing very much the framework, but the work and the output is really created by the researchers in RDA. And I was a bit into how rapidly the world is changing, and the slide you can see on your screen tells you a bit about the speed in which RDA was created, and it shows really the power of when there is a group of active people pushing things forward. And perhaps it was also time-wise a very good moment because we could see that a similar interest were starting in the US, Europe, and Australia. There was a growing interest in how to handle the research data and make it reusable in a very broad sense. And those discussions in Europe, we talked about something which we call Data Access and Interoperability Task Force. And we soon realized that the Americans were talking about the Data Web Forum, and we liaised our efforts. And on the European side, we created the first project proposal for the Commission, which we called RDA Europe, and the Americans have the RDA US, and the Australians have the RDA Australia. And the beginning was interesting because the proposal we actually put in did not was pretty much different from what eventually came out from the RDA Europe 1 project, because the world was changing rapidly, and to liaise the needs which we had on a global scale didn't really reflect everything which we had foreseen in our proposal to the Commission. So there was a lot of negotiations which we had to do with the Commission to explain why the outcome wasn't really precisely what we had foreseen in the proposal. But anyway, there was a lot of activities and very, very strong push from the researchers. So it was a bottom-up activity, and RDA Global was launched in Gothenburg in March 2013. So in fact, we could also almost celebrate because we are on the 21st now, so it's not too old, but it's I think a lot of work has been done, and I'm sure Peter will go into detail about that. Let's talk a bit about the RDA. And RDA, it's important to understand that RDA is an international member-based organization. RDA is not only Europe, it's not only US, and it's not only Australia. It's a global enterprise, really. And it's an international member-based organization focusing on the development of infrastructure and community activities that reduce the barriers of data sharing and exchange and the acceleration of data-driven innovation. I think the innovation is here important because it includes also the industry. And I think this is a very important thing to understand, that this is neither not a fully research effort. This is also something which we hope to be able to channel into the industry. And the vision is that the researchers and innovators openly share data across technologies, disciplines, and countries, and addresses the grand challenges of society. And the mission is to build the social and technological bridges. It's important to understand that we are not talking only about technological challenges. It's really sociological challenges as well. On the slide on the left side, you can see a bit of the wall of honor in a way, because there are some details, like we have 17 flagship outputs from RDA currently. We have about 75 adoption cases, and we have about 84 different groups working on data-related challenges, and we have more than 5,000 individual members. So it's really a major enterprise. It's not something small. And I will come back to this a bit later as well. The question is, what does RDA actually do? And I was into it in the beginning already. RDA in itself is only what the scientists and the researchers do in the effort. The scientists and the researchers come volunteer together and create groups to tackle challenges and to create the RDA outputs, which we value very much. There are lots of different subjects which are tackled. There are bullet points, just mentioned few of them, but if you go to the website, you will see that how wide the scope is today, and it's really, I think, one of the strengths of RDA, that attending an RDA event, you will have the opportunity to meet and talk to people with a very, very different knowledge or background than yourself. So you can tackle really, really broad problems. A bit about who can join RDA, and it's very simple. As an let's say first that RDA has two types of members. We have the individual members and we have the organizational members. And the names themselves already tell you quite well what we are talking about. Individual members can join RDA for free. There is no cost involved. The only thing you have to agree at the time when you join RDA is the bullet point. You have to agree about the openness, consensus, the balance, the harmonization, the community-driven, and that it's a non-profit and technology-neutral organization. But it's free. Any individual can join RDA when you comply to these bullet points. There are a few advantages, of course, to join RDA, and as an individual members, you can contribute to and accelerate the development. You can share your expertise. You get feedback from other experts. You have access to knowledge from the very, very broad group of people and the expertise, and you can enhance the quality and effectiveness of personal work and activities, and you can improve on your professional competence as well. And I was already telling that we have a bit more than 5,000 individual members. It doesn't mean that every 5,000 person is hyperactive, but there are hundreds of very active members. There is another way of joining RDA as well, and that's as an organizational member. And if an organization decides to join RDA, there is a small price tag attached to that, because as an organizational member, you have the opportunity to interact more closely with the RDA organization. You can get a bit more of the information which is coming out from RDA a bit earlier, perhaps, than those organizations that are not organizational members. So there are a few advantages. We don't have currently very many organizational members, but we have 43, I think, is the right number, and something which we call affiliated members that don't pay the membership fee, but they have joined because their activities are very similar to RDA. The work done in RDA is to a very big extent at least coordinated or done also at the plenaries. RDA is organizing big plenaries every 6 months, and the idea is to have them a bit spread around the globe. So far, we haven't really been too successful because most of in fact, all of the plenaries have been either in Europe or US, but I think it will be extended. In fact, we had one in Japan. I was wrong. So we have spread it a bit around the globe, but not that efficiently because there are still parts of the globe which I think would deserve a plenary as well. But they are extremely important because people come together, they work together, they change their experiences, they summarize or write up their recommendations or outputs from the working and interest groups. And there are sessions where these are presented and where they are discussed. So it's really the plenaries are the heart of the RDA working and interest group activities. And an important part nowadays in the new plenaries are the outputs and adoption cases, because I think it's very important to see how these output and recommendations really are applied also. So the output and adoption cases are very, very important. Just as a sort of a bit of an advertisement, the next big RDA plenary will be in April, just in a few weeks' time in Spain. I don't have the numbers, but the plenaries have been on the order of from 400 persons to 700 persons. So I think the Barcelona plenary will fit somewhere in between the 400 and the 700 persons. So it's a major event, and I really encourage anybody or everybody who really wants to understand RDA to come to one of the plenaries and attend the very, very many parallel sessions to get an understanding what's going on. And that was about as much as I had in my part. And I'm sure Peter will now take you deeper into the details of RDAs. So Peter, I will close my...
Okay, thanks Leif. So before I start talking a bit about more concrete work, the nature of concrete work in the working groups and interest group, let me briefly also say why I am participating in RDA or help starting at it. So
please put your video on, Peter.
I did. Oh, it starts sharing. Well, I have to share it. Sorry. Is it now? Okay. So I forgot to share it. Okay, so I hope it's okay. So my professional background is I was trained as electrical engineer, pattern recognition, and early computer science. And I worked for quite some time at the Max Planck Institute for Psycholinguistics, which is a kind of brain research, how human beings process language in their brain and how children learn languages and so forth. So, and from the beginning in this institute we worked based on data. So lots of different types of experiments ranging from eye tracking until now recently brain imaging and gene sequencing. So lots of data, and we were used in the institute to handle data, and therefore from about 2000 I was responsible, or my group was responsible for building large infrastructures I mentioned here too. You can look them up on the web if you like. So some European research infrastructures like Clarin and UDAT, and some global infrastructure like the Dobus one that had as purpose to harvest as many material about endangered languages all over the world. So I'm experienced in building infrastructures, and especially in the technology parts and standard parts, data parts of it. Since 2012, I'm at the Max Planck Center for Computing and Data. It's kind of e-science center for the Max Planck Society, and I'm active in RDA. And why did I start working in RDA? From my infrastructure work, I could see that the data work is too expensive. Bringing data together, integrating data, making data interoperable costs a lot of time and money, therefore. And given the challenges of data in the future, we can't pay all this. There's no one who can fund this. So it is clear that if we don't change the game, we'll have problems in having suitable or good data economy, data science. So I hope, yes. So let me go briefly into, oops, something happened here with my mouse, sorry. Okay, so let me briefly go into the bit of detail. So thanks for what Leif has said about working groups and interest groups. You see, as I try to denote in this diagram, they are the core of RDA, of the RDA work. We have working groups which have to be very specific about the goals they want to achieve, and they have a timeline of 18 months to finish these goals. So you have to be very concrete and not start, let me say, philosophing about a certain topic. So it's very constrained, and it's hard work to get the outputs done. The interest groups are much less restricted in their specifications, so there's more time, and the scope can be broader. So, and you will see in two examples how this will come out. In general, interest groups are focusing around a certain topic area, so like metadata. So no concrete purpose, no specific goal, but metadata. And then you will have people who are interested in this topic who come together and do some work. I should also mention here that there are BOFs, BOFs, so-called BOFs, bird of feather sessions at the plenaries. So some people just can have an idea, launch something to the rest of the crowd, and see who shows up to discuss a matter, a topic which is not well defined mostly at the very beginning. Some people just say that the community as such is already a great value. So all these 400 to 700 people running around is one of the big values itself of RDA. So I should add this here. Now, if you want to start a working group or interest group, or do above, then obviously you see that there are some problems with fair data, right? So making data findable, searchable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. There's some hurdle, some barrier which you come across in your daily work, and you want to solve it together with others. You then may join RDA. There are of course other groups as well. For example, World Wide Web Consortium working more on the semantic web ideas, which where we have close collaborations with. So there's no competition or so. So you work together, and as Leif already mentioned, you create some types of results, recommendations, specification, documents, and these documents, recommendations, they go about interfaces, specification of interfaces, specification of procedures, of processes, and maybe policies. And as Leif very nicely demonstrated, the major characteristics of this work is bottom-up, practitioner-driven, collaborative, open, and I forgot here to mention robust consensus. So if you have a working group, and it's sometimes interesting how these sociological parts work. if you have a working group, and they're sitting mostly 40 to 60 people in the room, and there's one person who disagrees with everything, let me put it extreme, then it's up to the chairs to define the rough consensus and to move just ahead, and then of course talk with these people. So this is the core of the RDA work. As you can see here, I do not speak about the possibilities to engage in RDA Europe or in national RDAs. So in Germany we have an RDA, and I know that the Finnish RDA is very active. So there are also possibilities to engage, but these are more in terms of training courses, datatons, meetings of different types. So here I'll focus on the participation in RDA Global. So let me move ahead one slide. So now I give you a few examples about working groups and interest groups. I will not go into too deep detail, but I hope I can show you what the type of outputs, the type of topics are these people are working on. So I myself, I co-chaired the Data Foundation and Terminology Working Group. It was one of the first working groups at all in RDA. And if you just focus on what I colored, marked red, it's a very simple but powerful model to organize data. And if you look to the FAIR principles, which you hopefully may know, and other principles where many people agree now upon, it's very well mapping these, but it goes beyond of stating principles. It says, how you should write your software. So in the middle you have the digital object, and a digital object can be a piece of data, can be a query to a database, can be a workflow, can be a piece of software, and so forth. So a digital object is just something, has a bit stream, as you can see, and the bit streams are somewhere stored in repositories. The digital object then has a persistent identifier and metadata, and these are crucial. So a digital object has a persistent identifier and metadata, and these two are separate. That means that if you write software FAIR compliant with this model, you should have software which, when you enter data into a repository, you immediately create a persistent identifier and create some metadata, whatever you get from the users, and put these things together in such a way that you maintain also the relations. What this red part also states is that metadata itself is a digital object, so a metadata has a persistent identifier. It also says that a digital collection is nothing else than an aggregation of digital objects, and itself a digital collection is a digital object. So it's a kind of recursive definition here. So if you build software and you build according to this model, simple model but powerful model, I'm sure, and we demonstrated this frequently, that with respect to your data interoperability and integratability, you already have made a big step. So I hope it's kind of could make it kind of clear what the big advantage is of having a simple, clear model. Then let me see. So another example is the data type registry. That was a group where you also have some software which you can use, and of course RDA is not about maintaining software. RDA is about maintaining specifications. But it's always good if there are some people around this that also create software that implements these specifications. So the data type registry is already being used by a couple of people, and the basic idea of a data type registry is nothing else than relating types, and I will make a few words about what a type is, relating types with functions, operations. So basically it's a simple database, where you on the one side you have types, type definitions, on the other side you have actionable pointers that allow you to start some operation. So a very simple operation. Let me give two examples of two simple operations. You find a very strange picture format, image format, some TIFF stuff which you never saw beforehand, and you don't know what to do with it. You could, if you have the data type registry icon on your screen, you could just drag this TIFF file to the data type, assuming that someone has made a relation, then some visualization software would pop up. Another function would be, or another type of relation would be, you deal with, let me say, structured information table or so, and you define in a certain column temperature in Celsius or in Fahrenheit, whatever. But all your software is used to just another standard like Celsius. What you could do is then, or use the data type registry, is if you say, well, you know, whenever you find a type, a certain type, so within a file type, then you start a conversion rule. So people are using this kind of idea in various circumstances, and it seems to be a very powerful construct. It's nothing new. It's just turning or offering a device which allows you to specify in a declarative way what types, how types will relate to operations. So this is also done. You can download the stuff, you can download the software and do some nice stuff with it. So these were examples of working groups, so they had to finish within 18 months, which you can guess was a hard time, especially for the data foundation terminology, since this model, which I briefly showed you, was based on about 30 or 40, I can't recall, use cases which we collected from all kinds of different disciplines. Another good example for an interest group is the agricultural data interest group. Why do these agricultural people from all places over the world select RDA as a platform to come together? So since they already have platforms. But what we understood is that there is also competition between different platforms they have. So you have the FAO, I can't recall at this moment what it stands for. It's a big organization, looking to food supply. There are others, and it's not easy to get everyone under one umbrella. So all these agricultural people found that RDA is a good place for them to come together. It's a kind of neutral place which they like. And what you can see is they agreed on discussing in broader terms how to harmonize description of experimental results, so structures, semantics, formats, metadata, and things like this. And of course they have this interest group as a kind of umbrella, but from this interest group, that's very interesting, they start concrete working groups. Oh, I made an error here in the slide. So the wheat data should be a VG and not an WG, but not an IG. So the same is true for rice. It's a working group. So they start concrete working groups after some discussion, focusing on a certain topic. They start working groups and come out with standardization suggestions how to deal with wheat data. So the same now is done by them for rice data, which is of course a very big issue as well globally. And the big hope from this group, from these people working in this group, is to have a faster and better exchange of agricultural data globally, and therefore a better use of the existing resources and better choices of types of grain or wheat or rice, dependent on the circumstances, so climate and so forth, which they have in different countries. So that's the agricultural data. Let me see. Let me move to the next example, and that's also the last example. On the technology side, you have a group which was very active during the last 3 years or 2 years or so. And I'm part of that group. I should know better, but time goes so fast. What you see here is a cycle, right? A cycle which also comes back from looking at different working groups and interest groups. You see a couple of mentioned here in the middle of the cycle. And basically all these people deal with the same kind of simple cycle. You start with some raw data, you register raw data, you put it into a permanent store. So registration means, creating a PID or creating a structure, creating some metadata. You put this into a permanent store. From the permanent store, which can be distributed, you build a new collection. This new collection is then being processed, resulting in new data. I call it here collection, and this collection then is fed back into the store. So you see, it's the endless cycle which we have in the data labs. We call it data fabric, and the people in this interest group just focus on aspects of this data fabric. And and you see here in these in the middle, you see that the couple of and there are still even more now, that a couple of working groups all contribute to these cycles. So the data foundation and terminology group created a model for good data organization. The metadata people are working on how to structure metadata. The DTR, I mentioned that, is about, how to link, so how to simplify processing, how to link types, which are stored and part of collections, how to process them. So you see that this data fabric interest group is a discussion forum for many people to discuss this cycle and to optimize this cycle. Well, yeah. So one result, I should share this with you, one result of, it's just one result of this interest group is, fairly recent, is the idea or the concept, if you want, of what we call the global digital object cloud. In the left corner you see the users acting via some devices. Then in the second box you just see logical fingerprints of objects, so PIDs, basically PID records and metadata. And then you see a cloud of service providers where you have registries and repositories providing these digital fingerprints of objects. And on the right side you have the bit sequences, the storage of all the stuff. Users should never be interested except for very specific high performance applications. So are not interested in how things are stored, basically. So on the right side. Users are also not so much interested which service now produces some the PID records or the metadata. So they just want to work with these digital fingerprints. So the gray, the second left block, the gray area, is in fact the area where the users would like to work with. So it's the area of where people deal with logical representations of the data. So again, PIDs, metadata. Well, some people are now already implementing this, like the global climate community, climate modeling community, and other people are very much interested. So in Barcelona you will see that some people come together and discuss this in more detail, how this could be extended and build up. So this is what I wanted to tell you about concrete work and some working groups and interest groups. Now, Leif already mentioned ways of participation. I will be here a bit more focused on the working groups and interest groups and BOFs maybe. From all these, I think we have now 5,000 people, members in RDA. From all these people, you can classify them in a certain way. So you have initiators. Let me call them initiators. These are those people who, as I said, detect a certain barrier which they would like to overcome, but not just finding a solution for themselves, but working together with others. They define a barrier and start some work together with others, check who else is interested in this topic. So let me call them initiators. Then you have those people who are participating in the working groups and interest groups. So let me call them interactors that really are active, giving opinions and exchanging opinions, and also doing some work. Then you certainly have participants. They are there in the discussions and at the plenaries, and are active in solution finding, provide use cases, other use cases. And then certainly you have a large group of followers who just want to be informed. They don't come per se to plenaries, but they look at the websites or so, and look at the documents, what's happening. So there are different levels, for participation. Of course, I should also mention that that's my experience, and I think Leif has the same experience, that many people will not come to the plenaries, in the global plenaries, but they rely on national or community-specific actions and meetings. So that's why RDA Europe, for example, does a lot in this respect. So a lot of national meetings. Okay, I think I'm almost finished. There's always a problem, in finding the way through all these 84 working groups and interest groups, and then you have also BOFs and so forth. We often hear people who come to plenaries who don't know where to go, right? So there's a problem. And this is not a problem specific to RDA. You have the same problem with the Internet Engineering Task Force, where you even have more sessions from different people working on different aspects. It's not so easy to find the way to see what each group is doing and how they relate to each other. There's some overlap, and then you have to figure out what the overlap is, why are there two groups, and so forth. So this is not so trivial, and that's what we have understood. Of course, you can go to the website. You see the website, and I think Leif at the last slide has a few references. You can go to the website, go to every group, read the stuff, and finally you are still figuring out, what is the right group that is addressing your topic, maybe, or the question is, should you start a new topic, or is the topic already been dealt with by another group? So you could do this. The website, it's not so easy, as we know. The best probably is, talk with someone and who is experienced and get some help. We are currently working on what is indicated at the right side on a kind of mind map, where you can click on the nodes, which are the interest group and working groups, where you get very short information, say in 2 key phrases, what they do, and where you can click on the arcs and see the relationships between these groups. It's not yet ready. We will launch it in Barcelona, and I hope that we, after Barcelona, can give more help in this respect. I'm at my end, so here's the last slide, which Leif created. I think it stands for itself, so I am finished, Rina.
Thank you, Leif. Thank you, Peter. I think this was very interesting indeed. Now we have some time for questions and comments from the audience. You can either type in the questions in the chat, or you may push or click the icon on the button or up on the window. There's a little man waving its hand, so I can assign you a microphone if you click there. So, any questions? If you still want to consider your questions, maybe I can just for a short recap. Leif, can you repeat, please, what one needs to do if an organization wants to be a member in RDA? What kind of process is it to become an RDA organizational member?
Yes, thanks, Rina. I wouldn't claim it's complicated, but I would refer there is on the website the applicational form, which goes to or should be submitted to the RDA Secretary General, who deals with the application. And as I said, the organizations those organizations who want to become organizational members, they have a small fee they had to comply to as well. So there are a few steps, if I repeat them. Please use the form on the website, fill in the form, submit it to the Secretary General, I think is the process. I'm sure the web page tells you the details correctly, and submit the proposal, and it takes some time for the Secretary General to process the application, and after that the organization becomes an organizational member and can participate in the organizational assembly, or even compete for a place in the organizational board.
Okay, thank you. Was there, Peter, something you wanted to answer into this question, or can I just? I have actually a question for both of you, Peter and Leif. I think you are both going to Barcelona plenary. So let's say there's somebody now online who would like to discuss further discussions we have had today. So how will they find you in Barcelona?
Well, that's that's a difficult question. I showed my face, which is maybe the first answer, and Leif also showed his face. Well, you know, I'm very much busy in all these sessions which are related to the data fabric group. So that's my baby, and we have lots of activities which were triggered by other groups. So let me give you one example or two examples. So finally, at a certain moment, we had two big. So I have to restart here. We had two big communities, at least in RDA. One is those people who come from the publishing area, right? And there is so more from the data publishing, I should better say. And we have another group which comes more from the labs. And as you can imagine, you know, you see it here in the diagram. You know, the publishing people at a certain moment take results which are stored somewhere, and you know, make a data publication which requires certain specific actions. And these people like me from the lab, they create data, you know, and from old data and so forth, right? So we were asked in Tokyo at the Tokyo plenary for the first time or we asked ourselves and our colleagues to come together, since the people coming from the publication side, mostly librarians but not only, they also discussed something they call publishing workflow, which means basically they look from the bottom part, which you can see here, the publishing domain. They look from the end product of the whole cycle, so some data publication. They look back from that part to the workflow, to the cycle. We look through the cycle and deal with workflows, you know, which happens in the cycle, and look from there also a bit to the publishing requirements. Now, when you read the documents which we with these two groups create, and we did this, you see that there's much overlap. Terminology differences, but in fact we're talking about the same issues. So we found ourselves finally that we talk about the same things, and we have a collaboration. So there will be another meeting, joint meeting between these publishing groups and the data fabric groups people, right? So there are a couple of these joint sessions and core sessions from the data fabric group, and you will mostly find me there to push ahead these things.
Great to hear. What about Leif?
Can I add one thing? Because in RDA we are well aware of the challenge for a newcomer coming to a plenary. And this is something which we have, I think, implemented
Yes.
already on the second plenary, and that's the newcomers session
Yeah.
on the first evening, I think. All, all the newcomers, or even the oldies, if they want to come, are invited into the newcomers session on the first evening, where you can meet other, I don't know, confused people, and you can share your experience already in the beginning, or you can meet in the newcomer session, you can meet some of the oldies and ask for some advice or guidance. And the bonus is that I think you get some small snack and perhaps a drink also at the newcomer session.
Yeah.
So I really strongly encourage you newcomers to go to the newcomer session. That's a very good point to start an RDA plenary.
Yeah. Thanks,
I
Leif.
think that was, yeah, a very good tip.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Let me just add here, Rina,
yes.
that at this newcomer session, there are also people from the technical advisory board. We have a few boards in RDA, not too many. A technical advisory board, and these people in general have some overview. So, you know, if you ask, you know, who is going about, say something crazy, registries of repositories, right? These people probably will say, look, go to this session or stuff, right?
Yes. Great. So I hope this short advertisement of RDA plenary in a few weeks in Barcelona will be of your interest. So if there are no other questions, I would just like to thank you, Leif and Peter, for this presentation, and thank you all for participating in this webinar. And I hope you will join our webinars also later on. Our webinars list is available on RDA website, which is now the link is on the chat if you want to have a look at there. And otherwise, I think
Rina, I could.
yes.
Before
Please use more time.
Yeah, before you break up, I should have mentioned in the connection with the newcomers session, we did not, neither I or Peter, go into the opportunities to be supported by to take part in plenaries. And in Europe, RDA Europe is supporting a small number, or is providing a small number of grants for early career scientists to participate in the plenaries. So I would encourage people to look up for the coming plenary, which will be in Montreal, for an opportunity to receive a small grant to attend that plenary.
That is a very nice offer, and I think that is something that all of us should spread the word about. But if that is all from Peter and Leif and the audience, I think this is a time to end today, and I want to thank you and say goodbye.
Thanks to you, Rina, and the participants. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.